Now you may notice that I have another little scrap. We've been doing our scraps all along. We practiced our straight kind of stitches, and then we practiced our slip stitch on the end. What we're going to do now is called a hem stitch. It can also sometimes be called a felling stitch, but we're going to call it a hem stitch. And basically we're making a little hem here. So what I did was I folded this over so that it was the width of about one of these lines, and then I just folded it over again a little bit. It really doesn't matter because all we have to do is have something folded over twice so that you don't have a raw edge here, and put a couple of pins in there, and then you can practice. Grab my needle. And these sometimes want to slide apart from one another, and remember, all you have to do is take your needle and slide it back towards the knot, make them friends again, and then just slide it back up. Okay. I am holding my fabric in my non-dominant hand, and my needle and thread are in my dominant hand. And I'm going to start at the very end, and so I'm going to take my stitch, making sure that I hide the knot underneath the fold, because we don't want it to show even on the inside of our mask, because it'll make it look yucky. And I'm actually going to do a stitch right on top of that one. I'm not going forward at all. I'm just going to make 2 stitches right on top of each other right at the beginning. Now, a hem stitch is going to be, I want it somewhere between 1/8 and a 1/8 and a 1/4 of an inch, so not very big. We're going to move over, and we're going to just grab a little bit of the outside and grab right at the edge. This is similar to what we did when we did our slip stitch, except for we are not going through a fold on the back. So slide over about the same distance, just a tiny bit on the outside and right at the edge of the inside. Don't make these too big. And you might want to practice and see if you can get them close together, because again, if you make them too big, this one's almost too big. They're getting a little bit better. If you make them too big, then your mask could come undone here. And so you're just going to catch that edge. So come over here, barely catch the outside, and then barely catch the edge there. Now remember, I'm using black thread, so it really shows up so you can see what I'm doing. And on the outside, I have some tiny little black dots. If I were using this color of thread, it wouldn't show. It would blend right in, but since I'm using black so you can see it, you actually can see those on the outside. If you were making a pair of pants and you wanted to do a hand hem instead of a machine hem, this is what you would do. If you were making a skirt or a dress, or maybe the edge of a sleeve, this is the kind of stitch that it's one of them that you could use. There's lots of different hem stitches, but this is probably the easiest and the most common one. So little tiny stitches. Don't grab too much on the outside, because if you do, it's going to show. And I'm going to stop right here. We're going to pretend that I got all the way over to the other side, and I want to tell you what to do when you get there. So I told you over here we wanted to have a couple of stitches right on top of each other because we want the extra added strength. So pretend I'm at the very edge. I'm going to do a couple more. So 1, 2 right on top of the ones that I just did. And when I do the second one, remember, I'm going to hold on to that loop. And remember, and I have 2 threads this time, so I got to be extra careful. So I've got the loop. Where's my loop? There's my loop. And I'm going to take my needle and stick it through the loop once, twice, and don't just let go of the loop, because you could end up with the knot being where you want it to be. I'm actually going to take my finger and just kind of lay it right on top of where that stitch is, and I'm going to slide it. And I've got my knot right there. And we don't want to have a little loose thread on the end of our mask sticking out. So just like we did with the other one, you know, when we did it, when we sewed the edge of the mask together, we're going to slide the needle underneath that fold just a little bit. Make sure when you go under the fold, see, and what happened is I went to the outside and I don't want to do that. So slide it through. Now I've got it, it's not showing on the outside. Slide it through maybe about an inch or so. Pull it flat, and then we're going to clip it. And remember, don't pull too hard on these stitches when you're making them. If you pull too hard, you're going to end up with them being puckered, and you don't want them being puckered. So I've pulled it flat, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to snip real close, and then the end of that's just going to be hidden on the inside. Nobody's ever going to know. I'm going to slip stitch along this long side, then I'll do the other side, and I'll do the top edge before I do the bottom. And I wanted to just check and show you that this measurement, once it's folded, is about 3/8 of an inch. About 3/8 of an inch. It shouldn't be any wider than that. It shouldn't really be any narrower than that. So if you folded it the way that I showed before, this should be okay. Okay, so I have a single thread. It's about as long as my arm. Don't try to make a thread that's long enough to go the whole distance, because you'll just end up with tangles and get mad at yourself. So I am going to start right at the end and come up from the back of the folded edge. I really didn't need to hide that knot, but I'm so used to doing that that I just did it automatically. Because this part's not going to show. This part's going to be hidden in the bottom hem. So remember, we are taking just a little tiny bite of the back, or of the, you know, the outside, and then going at a slant through this edge right here. At a slant. This is called a slip stitch. I have also heard it called a felling stitch. I've seen people work, instead of working right to left, they start and work left to right, even though they're right-handed. It's just the way that you are most comfortable doing it. But again, I'm doing just a tiny bite of the back and really close to the edge of the fold and pulling it flat. And remember, we don't want to pull too tight on this, because we don't want puckers on this edge when we get done. And in fact, I know I'm probably going to run out of thread before I get all the way to the top. And what I will do before I stop to tie the knot is I will take my fingers and I'm going to go from the bottom to the top and just kind of smooth that out a little bit. I'm not pressing real hard, but I want to just make sure that I don't have any puckers along here. And usually if you do that before you tie the knot, you're okay. Once you tie the knot and you have puckers in there, you got puckers, and they probably will not iron out. So I'm going to do a couple more of these, and then I'm going to let you do the top edge, the two long sides, and then I'll come back and show you what to do for the bottom. Remember, these things should be less than 1/4 of an inch long. They don't have to be, or maybe about 1/4 of an inch, but no bigger than that. Otherwise, they could easily catch on something, and then your apron's going to come undone. And once I do this stitch, I want to show you real quickly what this should look like on the back. Okay. This is the edge right here that I'm stitching on. This is the edge I'm stitching on. Here, let me take this pin out so you know exactly where I've already stitched. And if you make them the right size, you're not really even going to see them from the front. Maybe just a tiny little dot of thread. That's why with this kind of thing, it's always good to have matching thread. Otherwise, it will show up a lot. Okay, I'm going to finish stitching the two long sides and across the top, and then I will be back to show you how to fold up the bottom and stitch that. Bye for now.